ago, I was on the brink of dying. Kidding. 1 year ago I had my ayahuasca trip with some friends in my hometown, and it was something I don't really know if I was really ready for it, but I was prepared for a long time. And I'm saying that because I've had a spiritual awakening, if I can call it, a few years ago. When I was 16, I had my first astral projection, and I kind of started to look more into lucid dreaming and everything that had something to do with the astral realm. I started paying attention to my dreams more, to the symbols that I saw, and I started seeing angel numbers for the first time. And there were kind of a lot of numbers, so I thought that it should be a sign somehow, but I didn't know what for. And as the time went by, I realized it was my angels trying to communicate with me, and my spirit guides that are always surrounding me. And I know that for some of you it may sound crazy, but it's something that really resonated for me from a young age, because I had my mother that taught me a lot of new age stuff since I was little, even though she doesn't agree with them right now. I was accommodated with those stuffs, like my mom gave me a crystal when I was little, and she said it's only you that can touch it because it has angels and it's your energy and no one can ruin it for you. And I kind of started believing in angels. I had my grandmother that told me once, after she broke her leg and she was sitting in the bed more, that an angel visited her, and when she was very sick in bed, one night she just woke up and she heard this voice. She said it wasn't a female nor a male, but it just said, "Wake up now." And she woke up. That's two stories, this is one. She woke up, went to the bathroom, and she made sure she was alright. And another night when she felt a touch on her broken leg, and when she opened her eyes, it was a young man standing in front of her, and he was just looking at her, smiling. And she said it was radiating, and he just stood there, watched her, and he disappeared. So my grandmother told me those stories along with my mom, who was really supporting me into believing in all this stuff. And so I always thought I have a more spiritual side, but I didn't get to discover it until I was 16, as I said. When I was 16, I heard one time someone talking about out-of-body experiences, and I was mind blown. I was like, what is that? Like, can we separate ourselves from our body or stuff like that? Like, I always believed that we have a soul and a body, like the body is just the home for our soul. So it wasn't hard for me to believe that. I was just really seeking answers, and I went home after hearing that, and I started researching on the internet about everything that I could get my hands on about astral projection, lucid dreaming. And after school I was going home, getting into my bed, and I started practicing my first ever meditations. And at that time I didn't even know that these were meditations. Like, it happened so naturally for me, everything, to just get into that state of awareness. And no one ever taught me that. I didn't even know what I was doing. But I would tell you this: I was going home right after school, getting into my bed when my parents weren't home, because I couldn't have been disturbed by anyone. And I was laying in my bed on the back with light in my room because it was day, and I was putting something on my eyes to block the sun out of my sight. And I was putting something on my phone to listen to, like I think I searched for something like out of body experience music or something like that. It was vibrations only, and I had headphones so I could get really into that state. So I was lying in my bed with the headphones, something on my eyes to keep it dark, and I was relaxing all my body. It was really important for me to not touch my body parts. Like, I didn't want to feel my legs, like my hand on my leg or something like that. I really had to stand really, like, to not feel my body, you know? And I was getting into this relaxation state where I could only feel like my body vibrating. But that didn't happen from the first day. Like, the first day I tried meditating to astral project, I didn't astral project, but I got into that state of like vibration state, but I fell asleep. But the trick that I tried from the first day was that I was trying to keep my mind awake. That was one thing I had to do. It's like, let your body sink into the sleep mode, but keep your mind awake. And that way you can go lucid in your dreams, or you can astral project. That is the key. You have to keep your mind awake. And I was telling myself, the time I was laying there, like, this is just a body, this is just a body, this is my body, and I am not my body, I am not my body, I am more than my body. I was repeating this like a mantra. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I was doing it so well, because I was feeling like, you know how I can describe, like someone was doing a massage on my back. I was feeling like hands trying to rise me up from the bed. And one important thing that I was practicing while doing this was visualizing. I was visualizing myself rising from the bed, and that helped me a lot, because when I was sitting there and I was just telling myself I'm more than just a body, and I was visualizing myself floating, I was actually helping the process speed up. And somehow, after a week of trying this, combined with my enthusiasm for this thing that I didn't know I was doing really, and positive thoughts like, I can do it, I want to do it, I just want to see the other realms or something like that, I did it. I had my first astral projection after a week of trials and errors, because I was falling asleep so fast, so damn fast. But it was all worth it. I remember the first time that it happened to me. I was laying in my bed with my head on a side, with something on my eyes. I was repeating all this stuff and I fell asleep. But somehow, while falling asleep, I could feel that falling. You know, when you have that sensation of like falling and you just you just wake up because well, that is the moment where your body falls into the sleep mode and your consciousness just slips away with it. But that was the moment when I managed to keep my consciousness awake, like while my body was falling asleep, like that right moment, and my consciousness was sleeping with it. Suddenly it made a click and I somehow just brought awareness to it, and I just appeared like out of my body. I was like on the top of myself, and I cannot describe the sensation. I mean, I can't, but it was so real. I was aware that I was out of my body because I could feel my astral body trying to float, like it wanted to just go away. But I was so scared, and I kept pushing it down. Like I felt my legs trying to rise up in my bed, and I was like, no, I have to wake up. But I was somehow proud that I did it, but it was scary for me. Like I felt like it was this air around me that I just didn't know what to do with it, and I just said to myself, I went back in my body, and I just slipped back inside of my body, but I wasn't awake. I thought again that I was awake, like in my real body, but what happened is that I got into my first, not my first, but I got into sleep paralysis. And this sleep paralysis wasn't as scary as everyone speaks about it. It was really... I just felt that I couldn't move like my real body, but I could still feel like a part of something of me that was still moving. Like I was still on this side, and I felt like my body trying to rotate or move, or my arms, I felt them doing this, but I couldn't really feel that I was moving, like to see my bed, moving, you know? And so I kept myself calm for a moment because I didn't know what the state was, but I said to myself, oh, let me play that song inside of my head right now. And I was thinking about a song that I was listening that day, and it just popped up in my head like I was really hearing it, and I got along with the music. I was just vibing with it in my head, and suddenly I felt that I was in my body. I don't know, and after a few minutes, I think, because it was a long sleep paralysis and that always happens, I felt that I was in my body, but you know, I was still with that thing on my eyes, and I just took it off. Like the moment I felt my legs really moving in the bed, I was the happiest. Like I was the happiest girl on the planet. I felt like I was having legs, and I just remember waking up, like getting it off. I went into my mother's room and I took my phone and I took a selfie, like to send a snap to some of my friends. I don't know what I was doing, but I was like, I just had the craziest moment of my life. I was so hyped about it because I felt like I just discovered America, you know? I was like, why doesn't everybody know about this? Like, how can we separate ourselves from ourselves and not die, you know? And that was amazing. That was amazing, and I just couldn't wait to try again. That was the beginning of my spiritual journey. At the beginning was really bright and sunny, and I was so curious about everything because I was like, oh my God, there is another realm. Oh my God, amen. angels and we can talk to them, and spirit guides, it's just another talk. I was amazed by what was happening, and I just wanted to tell everyone about it, but I soon realized that as I was telling my friends these stories, they didn't quite believe me. They thought it was just my imagination or it's all in my head, and I was like, of course, where else could it be? Because everything is in my head all the time anyway. So that wasn't something I really wanted to hear. But I wanted to know that I'm not the only one thinking about this stuff or searching about it. I couldn't find anyone to really understand me at the time when I was 16. So I kept all inside of myself. I got into meditation by myself more, but I was so into researching on the internet because the only people I could hear having similar stories as mine, like astral projection and lucid dreaming and everything, were people from the outside of our country. And I just made online friends, and I kept watching YouTube videos about people sharing their stories, and it just got weirder and weirder. What I wanted to say is that there was a day when I realized everything is happening for a reason, and since that day I kept believing more and more in the universe. And God being the universe, I believed in God since day one. I believe this whole world is a masterpiece and we are just beings experiencing it. But nothing was really clear about that until I had my ayahuasca trip. Like, I had all these revelations throughout the years about life, but it was like I didn't really know what I was talking about until I took that plant medicine that just spoke through me. It just spoke through me. Oh my god, how am I going to tell you? A few months before taking ayahuasca, I heard about ayahuasca for the first time. A month later or something, I was watching something on Netflix, and in my recommendations appeared a documentary about ayahuasca, or I don't know, but I clicked on it and I watched it. Like, I saw a man almost dying, if not really dying there. It was someone taking this plant medicine with shamans in the Amazon forest, where you should take it, but it's not a rule, okay? It's just something if you really want to do it professionally, but I tell you, I did it professionally as well. Yeah, I saw this man with those shamans, and I was like, how can you take something like that? He was throwing up, and he was like having this, I don't know, he was acting weird in the whole documentary, but he said he had his revelation and stuff, but I was like, okay, moving on. I just kept seeing the word ayahuasca. It's like you just see something for the first time, and from that moment you keep seeing it everywhere until I really took it. I say this because, you know, I want you to know something about like how it happened, and it wasn't something that I was just suddenly curious about and just, hey, let me do this, because it's not something you want to try like that. I want you to know that I was kind of prepared for a few years for that moment, but I didn't know where these moments were leading to. I never knew. And I think somehow that was how it was supposed to happen. The day I took ayahuasca, I remember checking my Mystic app on my phone. I have a tarot card app on my phone that I check every day because I just love tarot cards. It was something really like about being spontaneous and facing my fears, and I don't know, something like that. But I didn't know what it was about until I was asked by these friends of mine if I want to try it with them. And I was like, no way, I'm trying. Like, I really wanted to see how this went for someone who already experienced it. But I didn't want to try it. But I was really curious about what they would feel, and I was like, can I come with you so I can see what happens? Like, I wanted to see their reactions, what they feel, everything, you know? And I knew inside of myself there was no way I was doing it, like taking that. I was like, no. I remember my thoughts so clearly that it was like it was today. I was like, inside of my mind, I'm not ready for it, I'm not. But when are you really ready? Right. That thought, it just woke something inside of me. I just felt awake for a second. I was like, I'm not ready for it, but I think I'll try it. I don't know. I was so present. And I was like, you know, this is my chance to face my fears, because I always run away from myself. And I saw that as a chance, because I know, first of all, I never tried psychedelics. Like, ayahuasca is the most powerful psychedelic, I think, that you can take it. It's not only, like, it's not meant to be for fun, you know, it's meant to give you some revelations and to transform your life. And knowing that, I was just like, okay, I never tried anything so powerful, but I can try it now, because I was so scared that I would collapse. I don't know. I was so scared that I wouldn't know how to face this thing. And I saw myself trying to run away, and I was catching myself, you know, like, I'm not running away from this. I'm trying this. And I got into the present moment so good. I was surrendering to the moment. I don't know how to describe it. I was surrendering to it. I know I couldn't control it, but I know I was surrendering to it, and I could leave my fears behind. And as I said yes, and we were preparing ourselves to go on a little trip in the woods in the daytime, as we arrived in the woods and I took my drink, oh my god, my perception about reality just blew off. Like, I remember getting into the car because I didn't want to fall if I'm standing or something. I was like asking my friend, like, when should this begin? Like, when should I feel something, you know? Because it's been 15 minutes and I didn't feel anything. But after I asked him, like, when should this happen? And he was like, I guess now. And suddenly, when I said to myself, well, I guess it should happen sometime soon, like now. Like, in that moment, as I said this, I felt like my body was just beginning to vibrate, like I was doing in those meditative states when I was trying to astral project. I just felt my head, I felt it so easy, and as silly as it sounds, I was feeling this intense vibration right here. It was like someone was really pushing me, you know, like it was so intense. And as I looked on the window, I was seeing this beautiful tree, not this one, but I was looking at this beautiful tree that had these roots visible, you know, like they were not fully into the ground. There were some outside because the soil was collapsing. I was looking at this tree, and in that moment, like, everything surrounding me started to be... I started to internalize everything. This voice that I had inside of myself just became so clear and so loud, like all I could hear was somehow myself inside of myself talking, but not just basic talking. It was like these revelations coming through me. They were like, oh my god, I'm feeling it. I was looking at this tree, and immediately I started seeing eyes everywhere. Like, every piece of my reality was just coming together as a net of eyes. Like, just as you look at these branches right here, it's funny. But I was seeing them as eyes, like everything, I don't know, it's like, I'm not metaphorically speaking, but I could see an eye out of everything. Like, I don't know how I can recreate it for you to understand, but anyway, that tree felt so real. It was like it was alive. I remember zooming into those roots, like my mind just did a zoom on the roots, and I could also see the roots from the ground, like into the soil. I could see like it had lights on, you know. I could see those roots just moving, like being alive inside of the ground, and I could almost hear them talk. I just saw those roots talking to themselves, and the visuals, like with the eyes, it just hit me that I was seen from all viewpoints. And in that moment, I felt God. I understood in my mind what God was. Those eyes just... I could feel it. It was all real, or all alive. It was this consciousness that was surrounding me from everywhere and everything, you know? And I knew, like, I couldn't escape those eyes. They were everywhere, but mostly in nature. Like, I couldn't see patterns of eyes, like on the walls. On the walls I was seeing all kind of patterns, like mandalas, but not eyes. Like eyes, pure look, this look, you know? As I looked at the woods, I saw those eyes again on the forest. Like, I was looking at the trees and I felt so connected to them. They were looking at me and like talking to me, and I had this voice inside of myself that was telling me that everything is perfect and everything is well. And that voice, like, I'm not telling you, it wasn't just beautiful, this experience. It was also like my body was so paralyzed somehow with fear that, like, all the thoughts I had about reality were just shattered at that moment. Like, my mind was still, and still I could hear this voice that wasn't my mind. It was just like this knowing that I couldn't express in words. Like, for this whole session of ayahuasca thing, I couldn't speak almost anything. Like my friend was trying to get me out of that state somehow, like to express it somehow, but I was just telling him, I was like I can't find my words because there are no words. Like, you know, it sounds so lame right now to say, oh, life is perfect or life is beautiful, or but in that moment all I could feel was that perfectness, you know. I was looking at the ground, at the soil was moving, everything, like everything was alive, everything was so beautiful. I was amazed by how beautiful the world was. I was looking at some old houses in the background, and normally I would look at them and I wouldn't really pay attention, you know, like houses or something, but I was like, my eyes were wide open for the first time. Like I was really seeing the houses, you know, like they were so beautiful and so perfect. Oh my god. In that moment, like I can say that the time stopped. Like the time warped somehow. I asked my friend at one point, like, how much has it been? I was having these revelations and stuff, and he suddenly told me, like, 3 minutes. And I was like, what? It's like 3 minutes, what the hell? Like, I've been thinking for like a year, but not thinking really. But I've been so present each second of those 3 minutes, like not thinking about future or anxieties of the past. I was just so present that those 3 minutes became hours. I was thinking like, oh my gosh, this trip is going to be so long, and I kind of got scared because I was so aware of everything. I wanted to escape that awareness, you know? Like I was too aware suddenly, and my body and mind weren't accommodated with this stuff. It was something new, and I could feel this fear trying to catch up. And I remember one time being in the car, and I was just looking at my hands, and I could feel like my inside body, like this fear body somehow trying to control me, you know, like I was like there was so much of my ego inside of me that I was like, I want to escape this, because I didn't want to sit in that place where everything was perfect and there was no time. Even though it felt good, it felt so unknown to me that I just wanted to escape it. And I remember looking at my hands. My hands were like, I could still see my hands and everything as it is right now. Don't think that I was seeing all sorts of patterns and not what it really is in reality, but I could see this, what you can see right now, but also more of it. Like I could see those really, really little details you missed. I was aware of them, and those really small details were forming patterns. So I'm not talking about patterns that you don't really see with your naked eye. You can see them right now, but you don't have that perception so activated in your brain. Like my perception was so, I don't know, I could see everything, every detail, you know. And I was looking at my hands, I could see like these symbols into my hands, like written into my hand, like they were speaking to me or something like that. But I was looking at them and I was like, but who am I? Like this is mine, these are my hands, or, you know, like I felt this fear trying to eat my inside, if I can say that. as I just dropped all the resistance, I remember looking, like raising my head and just looking out the window again. This time we were traveling somewhere. I remember looking up and like I just had that moment of like everything that I thought I knew about life just shattered. As I dropped all my resistance, everything shattered. I don't know how to explain this. But I felt for a brief moment that I didn't exist. And somehow that was so heartbreaking for my ego. Like, my ego was dying, if not, it was dead in that moment. That was an ego death, clearly. My ego was shattered because I couldn't feel a sense of self, you know. I was so absorbed by everything that I just clicked inside of me that I was everything. I couldn't look at my body and think this is my body and this is the external world. It just melted together. Like my consciousness, my body, my external world and my inside feelings just became one. And you can see me now thinking about it. It's just, it still blows my mind how that moment was so powerful. Like, I was just existing, and somehow it was sad because I knew there isn't really any purpose for me on earth. Like, all my life I was like, what is my purpose? I have to find my purpose, I have to la la la. But I realized that my one and only purpose was just that moment of looking for a purpose, you know, like suddenly the journey became the destination. I suddenly knew that I'm on my way all my life, but I have nowhere to be really. I have nowhere to arrive. I have nothing to chase, and I have, like, that's it. That's it. If I'm not thankful for this moment right now, like just being in a car, and that's it, I'm never going to be thankful for anything, because there is nothing more than this. Anything that we just think about this life, like being more like, you know, it seemed just so stupid at the time to think about fame or money or job or anything, because my mind shattered all of those things. It was like, what were we looking for? I was like, for myself, like, what have I been looking for all my life? Like, it was the first time I felt that I was alive and I had nothing to chase. I was just enough. I had this profound feeling of being enough. And that came with a dark side as well. All these revelations that I still can't put into words. And imagine this story is something that I'm telling 1 year after I took this plant. After I took it, for 1 or 2 days, I just stood in silence in my room because I couldn't comprehend everything that I had just received. Like, I was telling my friend after the trip was coming to an end, I was like, how am I ever gonna be able to express this? Because there are no words. And I was telling my friend, it's so hard for me to speak right now because I've been in that state of not speaking but communicating everything, that I didn't know how to return to my body on earth, you know, like it was like I was discovering how to make it function again for the first time in my life. I was trying to discover how can I talk, how can I speak, because everything seemed so intense. I knew that every word that I was speaking meant something, and it would repel in all sorts of realities, and I didn't want to make mistakes. That was the dark side that came after my trip of ayahuasca, because everything felt so amazing. But then I was like, how am I ever gonna go back to my normal way of being, because I cannot go. And the thing is, I could have stayed like that for a while. I could have stayed, but I knew it would hurt a lot of people. Well, that was my fear speaking, but I thought that if I give up fear, as I felt all the entire trip, ayahuasca trip, I was like, well, if I give up fear, then what is left is love. And I cannot function in this world like only based on love, because then the world would consider me as crazy, and that was the thing that was keeping me down all the time. I was like, I cannot like be in that state forever, even if I was longing for it. It was just like I saw heaven, and I know I saw it, like this is the only heaven that really exists. It's not something we go to only after we die. We don't really die. That was heaven. It's a place on earth. I'm speaking to you as honest as possible. I saw heaven with my own eyes. I felt it. It was inside of me, and it just expressed itself into the reality around me, but it was heaven. But oh, I lost myself. What was I saying? That I can't. Yeah, I knew I couldn't stay in that state all the time, because then people would look at me differently, and I didn't want, like, okay, I'm talking about the dark side that came after this trip, was that I really didn't know how to function for a few weeks, for a month at the beginning, and then for a few months. I didn't really know how to go back to this matrix, because this is, I know it sounds stupid and it's not fiction what I'm telling you. I lived it, and I was feeling like coming back to the matrix. I didn't know how to respond to it. I remember like the pandemic was just starting, and I came home to my parents after this trip, and I was seeing them like two little robots. I entered the house, and they were like, spray, clean, go wash your hands, la la la, put the mask down, la la la. And I was doing this stuff, but I was like so out of my mind. I was seeing everything from a higher perspective. I was seeing it from a perspective like outside of my personal mind, and I could really see my parents for the first time, and they were talking like they had no idea on what planet they were on. Like, I saw them so anxious in the house, like the news were turned on, the TV, and everything I could hear from the TV was like news, pandemic, la la la. And I was like, I couldn't receive it, like that fear state, I couldn't feel it at all. I was like, what are you talking about? What disease? What? And really, it's not my fault. I really couldn't wrap my head around this disease. I was like, this is bullshit, this is not real, even though I know it is real, but not real in a way that some people think. Like, on the plane, in that reality that I shifted to, there was no disease. I was functioning on an energy frequency that was not allowing disease into my being. I don't know how, I know it sounds stupid, please just believe me for a moment. Like, we normally in the matrix, we function in this reality that allows disease to be and all sorts of bad things, because this is the frequency that disease can exist on, and lower vibration, you know. But in that moment when I raised up my vibration, I felt like in this heaven state nothing can go wrong and nothing can really affect me. So why would I be scared of something that would contaminate my body? Because I was like it seemed so obvious at the time that the body is not just a body, you know. I could really understand at the moment that my body was just my physical representation of my energy, because everything is energy. Why would I be scared of the consequences of my energy, you know what I mean? Like, disease appears in this physical form just to, not just, but to make us aware of something. If we have something going wrong here physically, it's because we somehow emotionally didn't manage to let it out, you know, like to solve it. So it just piled up emotionally and became a disease. What I'm saying is that, okay, in that ayahuasca moment that I had, I just, for the first time, I couldn't see my parents as I did before and the world around me, because it became so clear to me that everyone is just inside of their heads all their lives, and in reality, that real reality that I was thinking about was what was really happening outside our minds. Like, what I'm trying to tell is that only when we get out of our mind, of our judging mind, we can really experience reality. Anything other than that is just mind, you know, it's just stories you make up in your mind, and those just create all your reality. What I learned from this trip was that I knew this since forever, that I create my, like, not since forever, but I knew that I was creating my reality. But when you do really feel it, that every word that you say really has a consequence, it's like you can't live your life like not thinking about what you're gonna say or you're gonna do, and so that causes anxiety. This is what came for me after ayahuasca. Anxiety and depression. These were my two best friends for a few months in the autumn and winter, when there was dark outside, it was dark inside, because, you know, I felt, knowing that everything is so important, I just couldn't allow myself for a long time to make mistakes. If I saw something going wrong in my reality, I felt like, okay, this is a sign. If this is not working, it's because there is something not working inside of me. And so everything after ayahuasca became like, if something is not perfect, and like everything is perfect anyways, and it can never be perfect anyways, if this is not perfect, this is a sign that something is wrong. And instead of living my life normally as I would have before, I fell into this trap of anxiety, of thinking of all sorts of things instead of just acting. And everything that I was experiencing with anxiety and depression was just like so opposite to what ayahuasca taught me. Like, ayahuasca brought me out of my fears, out of my anxieties. Like, for a moment I was like, my life is solved. Like, there is a place inside of me that doesn't recognize fear and disease and everything that is bad, because it doesn't really exist. It's just a place of darkness where there is no light. And when I just brought all this darkness to the surface to meet the light, there was no more darkness, like I had that moment, but it slipped away because it couldn't stay there forever, because then another part of this darkness came. It's really tricky to just, I don't know, the darkness didn't just want to set me free. Like, it's here for you to be friend with it, but the darkness still exists, even when you don't think it does. It still exists, and this is how it can still make you fall in its trap, like thinking it's not there anymore. It's like fighting the enemy. Since I took ayahuasca, I saw the world like in two sides, light and darkness, God and the devil. That was all for me. Heaven and hell. This is how the world became for me. When I was rising in love and everything was feeling easy, when I was in that state, I knew I was in this part of heaven. This is the heaven, this is inside of me. And when I felt this darkness and this anxiety, this voice that were just not good, it was clear to me this was the devil. And as long as I was forgetting that the devil exists just as much as God does, I was falling into his trap. Like, when I was aware that darkness exists, I was more aware, and I could okay, I know what is bad and is happening, and now I can transform it. But if I only think that everything is perfect and I keep my eyes closed on what is happening bad, then I feel like I'm doing a mistake. I didn't really know where I wanted to go with this, but I was trying to express my feelings of what happened after the perfect moment went away. Well, since the day I had those revelations, I still know after 1 year that this place of peace, of pure peace and bliss, I still know it is inside of me. Like, every time I feel too caught up in my mind, or I know where I can return, and that is freedom. I can free myself from myself anytime I really choose to. It's another thing that I don't always choose to. It's like I'm playing this game on myself. But I know sometimes I really deserve this peace, to know that nothing is really wrong and I'm free, and this life is just a game and we are all experiencing it from a different viewpoint. I know all this stuff, but I don't know, I think I still like to play with myself and think that I don't know, it's humans' nature to like to be caught in the game and not actually seeing that this is a game. We actually chose to play this game of life, even though most of us are playing a tough game and are maybe wondering every day, why am I alive? Because life sucks and life is so horrible. I know through how many horrors people can go through, and that is the hell inside of us that just repels outside of us. What I'm saying is that even though I know how hard life must be for many of us, I just happen to know how real that hell can feel like. I'm just saying that if this hell is real inside all of us and outside of us, of course, because if it's inside, it's outside, then heaven just must be as real as hell. When I was little, I promised myself I would never work as something that would not fulfill me, only for the sake of money. But here I was, trying to prove myself, and especially others, that I'm capable of real hard work too, not only of making videos and photographs as I like. Still don't know why I would waste my time trying to prove that, when I simply know that we as humans are capable of anything. But our lives are just too short to experience everything we think we need to. Some things simply happen if they really need to happen, and some you can force to happen, but at your own cost. I had a few days free before I got to work, so I thought it would be nice to explore the surroundings, get to know this tiny piece of the island. I took my headphones and went on chasing the sunset. It was one evening that I made my way through a forest, and by the time I arrived in the nearest town, it was already dark. I had to go back to my hotel to prepare myself for the first day of work. But on my way back, I discovered I had to go through the same forest, only now it was dark. One little thing that I forgot about. I was standing in the road, looking into the complete darkness lying in front of me. My phone was showing me 1% remaining battery, and I remember saying to myself, "Okay, God, I know that you can hear me. I never ask you much, but now I really have to get back safe, so please, just keep my light on and guide me on the path." I had to go like that for like an hour, that's how much I'd been walking. My mind was trying to make up all sorts of scenarios, but I kept my faith, and despite the fear, I kept moving forward, one step in front of the other. I realized I had nothing else to do but face my fears. And after a long walk in silence, where I could only feel the presence of God, I finally saw the road. The moment I stepped on that road, my phone shut down, and then I knew God would always be there for me, guiding me through the darkness. I only had to believe.